Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar. Run for the weather warnings. This is looking like a real possibility. We can see some pretty disruptive weather between Christmas and New Year. It is looking particularly stormy in places as we progress from Boxing Day to the 27th, 28th, with heavy rain, very strong winds in places, and even some snow further north. There's potentially even some disruptive snow for higher ground of northern England and Scotland. So we'll look at that in detail from the weather warnings and on the latest UKV, which will have the precipitation, temperature and wind gusts as we head through the festive period. And of course we'll continue to have a look at the longer range as things are starting to look incredibly interesting for the early part of January. If you had seen the video from yesterday, we did look at the quite likely chance now that we see a sudden stratospheric warming as we head into the early part of January, and potentially even see a proper split of the polar vortex, something we haven't seen since 2018, where of course we saw the beast from the east. Now, I'm not saying that that is going to happen, but it does mean that this event could perhaps propagate down some major blocking and the risk of some really cold weather as we head towards the early to middle part of January. Of course, it takes a couple of weeks for what happens in the stratosphere to propagate through to the troposphere, but I must say some of the runs, especially the GFS, in its longer range, is starting to show perhaps a tropospheric response, i.e. massive blocking coming down from Greenland, perhaps even towards Scandinavia, and starting to pull in some really quite cold air. So we'll have a look at that in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. Hope everyone is having a great Christmas, whether you celebrate Christmas or not. I hope you're all having a great bank holiday and enjoying your day. I'm going to make this video relatively short. I know most people will probably be off their phones, off computers, etc. today, but of course I did still want to get an update out, as although everyone else is, relaxing, having a great day, the weather never sleeps, and yeah, it does look like things are perhaps starting to ramp up again as we head into early parts of 2024. So if you start on the live radar, you can see that it is looking like a pretty horrible day for many. At the moment, for much of England and Wales, we are actually pretty dry. But by the time you're seeing this, the rain is probably starting to move in. I'm recording this around 11 a.m. By the time the video comes out, this rain is going to be starting to move in, and it means for much of England and Wales, it's going to be a pretty drab, mild, but wet day. Lots of rain moving in, hopefully not too heavy, but it is going to be pretty miserable. So if you are planning to get a walk in today or get outside, the best time is probably as soon as you see this video, sort of around the lunchtime period, or around the lunchtime period, because later than that, it looks like a lot of rain is going to be coming in. Now, as I said, for most, it is mild and wet, but for some, it is quite cold and snowy across parts of Scotland. Really, mostly only the higher ground of Scotland, we are seeing some heavy snow moving in at the moment, and it will continue to ramp up over the coming hours. And this is because we have some cold air feeding in from the North Sea and generally to our north, because we see a bit of a disturbance moving in with lots of these heavy showers, with them turning to snow over the higher ground. So it is for quite a small minority of people, but nevertheless, heavy snow, real possibility today, and quite festive scenes, perhaps going to be seen across some higher ground of Scotland. So yes, it's a mild and wet day for most, but technically we are seeing, once again, another technical white Christmas. Now, I said if we have a look at the temperatures, as around 11 a.m, it's incredibly mild in the south, still perhaps double digits again today, but you can see for Scotland it is pretty cold, really mainly only over the higher ground, but still chilly to low-lying areas, just not quite cold enough for all of that precipitation to fall as snow. It is going to be a very mixed picture over the coming days, lots of colder air masses and very mild air masses clashing over the top of that, and that's why we could see pretty disruptive weather through the next few days with rain, snow and wind. Now, if you look at the latest weather warnings, we've got no weather warnings until Wednesday at this stage, but we could see a pretty disruptive area of low pressure move in. This could actually become a named storm. Again, it'll be interesting to see whether we do see it named, because of course a lot of people at the Met Office will be on holiday, bank holiday of course today, so I don't know when this could get updated as of 11 a.m. Let me just update it quickly. I've not seen any updates to this. Actually, yes, we've just got an update a few minutes ago for this event, another rain warning issued. So yes, we hopefully will see more updates for this over the next couple of days, but I do think there is a real possibility this could get named, because we'll have some of the look at some of the raw data in a minute, and it does look really quite disruptive, this system. Now we've got numerous weather warnings already issued. If we start further southwards, we've got a yellow wind warning for the south coast. It was issued yesterday, hasn't been updated yet, but I'm sure this will be updated in the coming hours or the next day or so. From 3 a.m. until 6 p.m. on Wednesday, again 50 to 60 miles per hour widely, with a risk of 65 to 70 miles per hour. It looks like the wind field can actually be quite a lot more extensive for this system than the warning is showing right now, as we'll see at the UKV in a minute. You can see it is medium likelihood, lower impact. I do think that likelihood could increase, and perhaps even the impact could increase as well. So I do think there is even a possibility of seeing amber warning issued, as we'll see from the UKV in a minute. Rain warning issued for much of southwest England, again from midnight on Wednesday until 3 p.m. Again, this has just been updated. New warnings issued, so basically compartmentalising it. And you can see 15 to 25 millimetres expected widely, 30 to 50 millimetres possible as well. Warning for much of Wales as well, again from midnight until 6 p.m. Again issued earlier today, about 10 minutes ago. 30 to 40 millimetres of rain expected widely, perhaps 17 to 90 millimetres over some of the highest ground. Again, strong winds could exacerbate impacts. And another rain warning issued for parts of the Midlands, for lots of northern and northwestern England here. Again, from 3 a.m. until 6 p.m. it issued again about 8 or 9 minutes ago. 20 to 30 millimetres quite widely, perhaps higher ground, 40 to 60 millimetres, maybe as much as 70 to 90 millimetres. And there is the possibility here of even seeing some snow over the highest ground before this will turn back to rain. So a snow to rain event for northern England possible over the higher ground. Further northwards, up towards much of Scotland and eastern Scotland specifically, could see a bit more snow here, as heavy snow and rain may cause some disruption again from 6 a.m. until midnight. I do think this is a rain and snow warning, because I think even at this stage the Met Office isn't quite sure what the precipitation typing will be. Has been updated, and it is revision to the warning area to extend it further westwards and northwestwards and change the precipitation totals. Again, we could see at low elevation, so below 200 metres, 20 to 30 millimetres, maybe 50 to 70 millimetres. But we're not going to be seeing much higher rainfall than that, because if you go over the higher ground, it's going to be falling as snow. So we could be seeing 10 to 15 centimetres of snow over some of the highest ground, and some very strong winds could be associated with this as well. I'm actually quite surprised we've not seen a wind warning issued for Scotland, because it does look pretty disruptive, I must say, for those wind gusts for southern areas and for northern areas on the northern flank. I'll just refresh it quickly to see if we've got any other warnings. No warnings are now issued, or no new warnings have been issued since I've just refreshed. So we'll have to see exactly what happens to these warnings over the coming days, but it does look pretty disruptive on Wednesday. So if you have got planned this week, if you are flexible with those plans, I would probably try to avoid Wednesday, as it isn't looking particularly great. If you do look at the latest UKV, you can see over the coming hours plenty of rainfall for the south, but snow further northwards, and that will continue through the evening, especially for northern and eastern areas, mainly over higher ground. But I wouldn't rule out even moderate hills or even inland low-lying areas for a time today. Again, it will depend on the precipitation rate, because we could see evaporative cooling, and again, things like this are extremely marginal, and of course the models could be half a degree out, and that could make all the difference. Through this evening, the rain continues to pile up in the southeast, eventually clearing around the midnight point, and then as we head into Boxing Day, it actually doesn't look too bad of a day. So whether you celebrate Christmas or not, another bank holiday, another day off for most, and it's looking like not too bad of a day. So if you haven't got outdoor plans, tomorrow should be pretty decent, perhaps apart from the far southwest as we head through the afternoon. The rainfall will start to move in through Boxing Day evening, and this is the approaching weather front for that system moving in on the 27th, and then the real heavy rain arrives into the early hours of the 27th. Snow initially on its northern edge over higher ground, and perhaps some heavy snow across Scotland, and then widely heavy rain elsewhere and very strong winds. It will clear through the last part of the afternoon into the evening, and then as we progress towards the 28th, again, we're going to see lots of showers moving in, potentially more colder air coming in from the north, and it will mean there'll be more opportunities for falling snow and potentially snow showers further northwards. And that continues into the latter part of the week. Doesn't look like any big walls of rain beyond Wednesday, but plenty of showers, some of them falling as snow. The UK Met Office run, which is sort of the overall run, which the UKV is the sort of a high resolution model of, is definitely suggesting some continued colder weather towards the end of the month. Again, nothing extreme, but below average, meaning there is a real possibility of seeing falling snow, especially over higher ground and further northwards. So that is interesting. Other runs, some of the longer range runs like the GFS, etc., not showing that as much, showing more of a stormy southwesterly pattern. So there is even uncertainty towards the latter part of this week, so make sure you stay tuned as this forecast here, which does show snow showers and northwesterly winds and generally colder conditions, could change pretty quickly. If you do have a look at the wind gusts, you can see as we progress towards the 27th, we'll really only have a look at the 27th, that's the disruptive period. You can see the wind gusts really start to pick up from around midnight and very strong winds for southern areas. And you can see why there is a warning for southern areas, but look across Scotland and Northern Ireland, could be seeing 60, 70 or even 80, 90 miles per hour here. So again, pretty surprised we've not seen a yellow or even amber warning issued for this system. And this is why I do think there's a possibility this could get named for the rain and snow and for these extremely strong winds around Wednesday lunchtime. Another batch of very strong winds coming in for the early hours of the 28th, so there could be more warnings issued for this on the back edge of the system, and then generally gusty winds do prevail for the days following, but nothing too disruptive. If you look at the max temperatures, you can see this afternoon, for many in the south, it's double digits, 10 to 13 degrees. For Scotland, more around the freezing point, and it is pretty cold with that cold air digging in. As we progress over the coming days, Boxing Day looks like a chilly day for most, more seasonable around the mid to high single digits, and much colder across Scotland, so a much more seasonable, wintry feel out there, but nothing too extreme. Into the 27th, again, temperatures on the thermometer are going to be relatively high in the south and relatively low in the north, but it is probably going to feel pretty miserable out there, all the rain and wind around. And then as we head into the 28th, again, another average to maybe slightly above average day, and it generally does cool later this week. And by Friday, we're all back towards average or even slightly below average, with a mid to low single digits looking more possible. So it is going to be quite a varied next sort of 5 days, potentially pretty disruptive, especially Wednesday. So we've got to keep all eyes on that system. So if you have got plans, as said, do try and avoid Wednesday the 27th, as it is looking like a pretty stormy, unsettled day. And for northern areas, could be some significant snow around as well. Now, if you do have a look at the longer range, I know this video is getting a little bit longer now than intended, but we'll, of course, keep up to date with what is going on as we head into the start of the new year, because, of course, we are looking for that potential tropospheric response from the impending stratospheric polar vortex sort of split that is looking like a real possibility. Now, as we progress over the next week to 10 days, it's not like we're going to be seeing anything different than the status quo that we've had recently, with generally westerly winds, but some brief northies and northwesties allowing some wintriness further northwards, and that looks possible later this week, Friday into Saturday, for the southwesties return. So colder interludes look possible, but nothing too extreme. And as we head into the new year, then we start to see more amplification of the jet stream. Really is only right toward the extended range, though, that we start to potentially see impacts of the stratospheric sun stratospheric warming. Here, look, is what is happening. High pressure is moving towards Greenland. Lobe of tropospheric polar vortex is moving towards Scandinavia. This is pretty typical big, cold, blocked spell arriving here right in the extended range, and you can see the upper air temperatures, very cold air is heading our way. Again, all the runs recently from the GFS have been suggesting this sort of pattern around that sort of day 12 to day 15 range, all in slightly different ways. If we have a look at the midnight run, again, look at that massive low of tropospheric polar vortex, big northerly winds arriving. The 6 o'clock run from last night was, a pretty extreme run. That would be, if you're looking for cold weather, that's the pick of the bunch there, with a massive Greenland high. We actually put a YouTube short about this last night, as it's probably one of the best wintry runs we've seen all season so far. And you can see easterly winds, low pressure coming in against that colder block. We'd be looking at a lot of snow in this sort of scenario, and it would be bitterly cold. Look, all that cold air to our northeast feeding into us with warm air coming up against that. That would be a ridiculous scenario. But these are just the last few runs, all showing perhaps a tropospheric response to the stratospheric polar vortex breaking down. And even if we do go back to the latest 6 o'clock run that's just come out, if we look up in the stratosphere, you can see the major sudden stratospheric warming taking place, not only displacing the polar vortex, but it's splitting it. Look at that, 2 lobes of polar vortex remain. The split, people would traditionally say, does correlate with perhaps more severe colder patterns or a higher likelihood of severe colder patterns. And you see the split here with the winds. You can see there are 2 lobes of polar vortex. If we go back to right now, look, one very distinct, very strong polar vortex. We go right towards the end of the run into early January. We've got the big warming pattern, then 1 lobe of polar vortex down towards Europe and another towards parts of Northwest America. So this would be an incredibly interesting next few weeks and next month in general if this did come off, and it's looking like a real possibility this does come off, as not only are we seeing this from a wide range of models from both the ECMWF and the GFS, but we're seeing consistency. It's not just one run here or there. Consistency now is appearing. So yeah, it could be an incredibly interesting next couple of weeks. Now, if you have a look at the GM and the ECMWF, they're less interesting because they only go out to day 10. So they're not really showing anything too crazy in terms of colder weather. The next 10 days looks generally around average, sort of hovering above and below. You can see generally pretty unsettled, stormy conditions over the next couple of weeks with potentially wintry conditions mixing in as well, but we're not looking at anything too major. Day 10, a bit more amplification in the jet stream. We're not looking at anything too extreme into the early days of January. If you start to have a look at the latest ECMWF, again, westerly winds continue to come in off the Atlantic. Generally, cold weather looks possible at times, but really only colder sort of flows, brief day or 2 of cold weather moving in. Generally, it looks very up and down. If you do compare to the ensembles, the latest GFS ensembles haven't fully come out yet, but you can see it's quite varied over the next week. Colder spell, perhaps towards the end of the year, a couple of degrees below average for a few days, and then as we head into the new year, could be slightly above average, a couple of days above average. So up and down, looking very likely over the coming days. If we look at the longer range though, if we look at the midnight run, you can see a definite dip in long term, or at least increase in very cold runs getting down to the -10 level. It was actually a little bit more extreme the 6 o'clock run last night. We've got good 5 to 10 runs down towards -10 or colder, which would definitely suggest the real possibility of major cold arriving. -10 degrees and lower, that is the sort of level where you'd expect ice days and any precipitation falling out of the sky to fall as snow. So that is the sort of level we're looking at for a major colder spell, and there perhaps early indications that could be starting to appear in the very long-term model output. And if we compare to the ECMWF, nothing too crazy, but again, perhaps some dips starting to appear right around that sort of 6 to 8 of January point. A few colder runs starting to appear. But again, we're not expecting anything too crazy at this very early stage, but perhaps tentative signs that stratospheric polar vortex, with its impacts, the splitting of that polar vortex, the impacts from that could just about be starting to creep through the troposphere from some of the latest model outputs. So it is going to be an incredibly interesting watch the next week or 2. We're going to see lots of chopping and changing. There'll be days where the models completely reverse. There are other days where the models will go for something extremely cold. That is just what happens when we see these sorts of events. And we'll just have to wait the next sort of week or 2 to see what sort of definitive pattern is going to be setting up. But if you are looking for cold weather, this looks like perhaps some of the highest probability of cold weather for a number of years, I must say, if we do see that split of the polar vortex, which does look more and more likely. The next couple of days we'll probably have another polar vortex update, as of course the next couple of days we'll be getting to within sort of a week to 10 days of the potential sudden stratospheric warming, and if that does continue to continue in the model output, then we can start to say with quite a lot of assurance that a sudden stratospheric warming will be happening. We'll just have to see, of course, but for the meantime, do enjoy your Christmas, enjoy the days off if you don't celebrate Christmas, and of course, do stay safe on Wednesday, as it is looking really quite disruptive in places, and I'll keep you updated if we do see that system named, and if we see any warning upgrades. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.